the top of the stretch. Pure Sensation has given way to Hidden Scroll. Stubbins now moves by both of them and takes over the lead. Texas Wedge is closing in. So too can Thaka. A lot of work to do for Alexandra as they come to the final furlong. Can Thaka on the inside Texas Wedge. Here comes Alexandra. Can she get there? Can Thaka, Alexandra got there from...
Welcome back to the Racing Rundown here on YouTube. I'm Eric DeCoster. In this edition, we will be continuing with our Breeders' Cup previews as we take a look at the Turf Sprint. This race is one you definitely have to take a lot of things into consideration. It is always one of the tougher races of the weekend, year in and year out to cover. There's a million different ways you can go. We sometimes see your favorites getting big wins here, and more often than not, you have some long shots. Last year, Belvoir Bay scored. It was really the first time I've ever figured out the Turf Sprint. Before that, it has been a very tough race for me to pick, and that just kind of goes to show in general. It can be a very tough race to handicap, but we're going to try our best here, and of course, go through all 14 horses. And at the end of the day, hopefully, some of you listeners out there can make some money with some of the ideas we throw out here. And of course, we'll go horse by horse, like I just said, and we'll start with the one, Big Reneur. Big Reneur is a absolute speedball from Southern California. He's a 5-year-old, very lightly raced, only 7 career starts as a 5-year-old. Began his career actually last fall, so only began racing towards the end of his 4-year-old year, never been out of the money in 7 career starts. Pulled off a big win in the Eddie D in his last race at Santa Anita, going 5.5 furlongs a distance. He has won 3 in a row out in Southern California. It was a very nice win in the Eddie D. Went wire to wire. Before that was coming off a bit of a layoff. He hadn't ran since June at Santa Anita as well, where he'd put up back-to-back victories heading into the summer there. So he did some really nice things this summer and this fall. That Eddie D win was huge. Off a bit of a layoff. He hadn't ran in a good 3 to 4 months, and then to put up that effort was mighty impressive. Went very quick on the front end and was able to sustain it. And one of the bigger themes of this race is there's going to be a strong lack of pace, and in turf sprints, that can be very beneficial to a front runner. The big worry for Big Reneur 100% is the inside draw. He's got to get away quick and establish good early position to be contentious in this race. Otherwise, as long as he can do that, really, he should be there at the end. The 2 is Just Might. This is one that's also probably going to be forwardly placed, more than likely second or third. Has ran 2 really good back-to-back thirds in Grade 2s, the Twin Spires Turf Sprint on Derby weekend, and then the local prep, the Woodford, was third, beaten just a length and a quarter. So 2 very solid efforts after a disappointing run in his graded stakes debut here at Keeneland in the Shakertown. So two very different races that he's ran at Keeneland. One very good, one very poor. I obviously trust the recency a bit better on him. He's been very good turf sprinting, but he's a big long shot here. He's never really proven himself to be, with multiple tries, he's been overmatched by some of the other horses here. Extravagant Kid has finished in front of him twice. Leinster beat him in this last start, and 3 back in the Shakertown as well. He was behind a couple in here, so he's been very good, and he was very solid in allowance company, very consistent there, turf sprinting, before he got into graded stakes company. And that last run was by far the best race he's ever ran in his career. But at the same time, he had every chance in the world to win, and he was put away very well. Realistically, I could see this being a long shot that runs a good race, but what I'm trying to say is I could see a case being made for him. However, he is one I'm not looking at because I do like a couple more, just a bit more. The 3 is Imprimis. Will likely be your second choice, if not your favorite. 2 wins in 2 starts this year. Detroit at Saratoga and the Kentucky Downs Turf Sprint last time out. Both very impressive wins. Actually, was disqualified from Detroit, I should say. He crossed the wire first, was much the best. Shouldn't have been disqualified. Nevertheless was. I consider it a win in my eyes because he crossed the wire first in a race. He was much the best and really didn't impede anybody. So I guess, literally a win and a third this year, but has crossed the wire first in both of his races in 2020. Very impressive. He's done some good things at Keeneland too. He won the Shakertown in 2019 in April. That was a very impressive win with a less than stellar trip, but he was able to work it out. His only other race at Keeneland was a third in the Woodford last year, and that was a good run as well. Last year in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, he was 6th. And kind of with the trip, that kind of compromised him, but I think he gets the same one here. He broke from post position number 3 in a 12-horse field last year at Santa Anita. Didn't break super great. Got on the rail, but he was well behind horses. And when he finally got going, it was much too late. And in a paceless race, and last year's race wasn't even paceless, he had something to close into. He just got going too late. I see a similar setup for him this time around, except it's going to be much slower on the front end. He's going to sit the same spot, but it's not going to be an easy pace to close into. So I don't like him a lot. I think he's very beatable, especially at the price he's at. He's obviously been very impressive in his runs this year, but there are circumstances that I just don't love for him, which is why I'm going against him. The 4 is Front Run the Fed for Chad Brown. Chad Brown, he took this race back in 2016 with Bobby, or 2014, excuse me, with Bobby's Kitten, so he knows how to win this one. Front Run the Fed in his graded stakes debut last time out, ran a very game second in the Kentucky Downs Turf Sprint behind Imprimis, actually dead heated for second with another horse in this race named Bombard. Before that, he did win a 7-furlong race at Belmont and Allowance in July. The big concern I have is, does he really want to go 5.5? Is that too short for him? Because every single race he's ran has at least been 6 furlongs or longer. He shows he doesn't really have the early speed, the motor. To me, that suggests he's a turf sprinter. So that's where my concern comes in with this horse. Obviously that last run was really nice, but he was coming late, and like I've been saying, I think he just wants a little bit more ground than this. I think he's going to be running on pretty well at the end, but he's really just going to be getting franked up when all is said and done. So for that reason, I am against him. In addition, he's just a little light on class that he's been facing. He's been winning pretty impressively, but there are just better turf sprinters, raw turf sprinters in this race, and I think that he is a play against in this spot. The 5 is Wet Your Whistle, the winner of the Belmont Turf Sprint in his last start, went wire to wire there. Don't expect him to be on the lead again. He's done the majority of his work in his career closing, and he's done well. Picked up a Grade 1 win, actually, in Canada in 2019. So he's probably a better closer. I don't know. He might even be a little bit closer up in a stalking position, perhaps, but not going to the lead, that's for sure. That was a nice win last time out. Beat a pretty solid group in that Belmont Turf Sprint, going 6 furlongs. Biggest question, kind of along the lines of, he's done his best work at 6 furlongs in his career. Kind of like I was saying with Front Run the Fed, I think he just needs longer. He has 2 wins and 5 starts at 5.5 furlongs. He lost the Laurel Dash 2 starts back going this distance against much weaker. His only 2 wins came in 2019, back-to-back races, very nice wins at this distance. But other than that, he's faltered multiple times at it. And at the end of the day, the Belmont Turf Sprint was not the deepest group in the world. There were tougher preps. He caught a pretty light group. He caught a very favorable pace scenario that he was able to take advantage of, and he did. And he won that race nicely. But coming into this one, he kind of falls in the same boat as Front Run the Fed. There are cases to be made, but at the end of the day, he's not one that I love. The 6 is Glass Slippers. This is the European representative in this race, the only Euro that is in the body of the field as things stand. She's been very good, though. One of only 2 Grade 1/Group 1 winners this year. She won the Flying 5 in Ireland, winning her in for this race, 2 starts back. That was a very impressive effort. She likes to sit mid-pack, and she does show some really good tactical speed, so that's going to be beneficial to her. Last time out was second in a Group 1 in France. She's very interesting because Europeans have never won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. It's never happened because they just don't have the early speed to go with the American speed, and they're generally just getting wound up when the wire comes. Because a turf sprint in Europe is so much different than a turf sprint in America. In America, it's just gate speed and as fast as you can for as short as you can, and whoever hangs on or is coming late is the winner. In Europe, it's much more of a grind. It's much more of a process, and I just think she falls into that typical European mold. And we've seen great Europeans come over and run in the turf sprint and not have success. We go back to 2017 at Del Mar. We had Marcia come over. Marcia was a very talented filly with a very similar resume, actually, to Glass Slippers coming into the turf sprint. She just didn't have the speed to go with the Peter Miller duo that topped the race, who were big long shots, but they fit the mold of the turf sprint. And we've seen it in other years too. The European participation in this race has really decreased over the years. There were actually none in 2019. This is the only one this year. And the reason is they know they can't go with the American speed in these turf sprints. And that coming to America, going around the bend, especially the turn, is really what does them in. And I think that's going to be Glass Slippers undoing as well. So she is a look against despite her very impressive resume. The 7 is Leinster. He's the horse per course specialist, one that's certainly going to get a lot of backing. Wouldn't be surprised to see him go off favorite. He's 3 for 4 lifetime at Keeneland. Only one loss was the second, and a very good second at that last year in the Woodford, where he had the lead and just coughed it up in the very end. So he loves it at Keeneland, wins in both of their grade 2s as preps for this race in July and October, the Shakertown and the Woodford, and he's had a beautiful trip. He's going to be able to sit a beautiful trip this time around. He's very logical, 100% a horse you can go with in this spot because he loves Keeneland. The turf sprint in general is very much a horse per course race, and he fits the mold. He also loves the 5.5 furlongs. He's 5 for 8 at the distance with 2 seconds. Only once has he finished off the board going 5.5 furlongs. So there's tons and tons of reasons to back this horse. I'm going to be honest, I'm looking elsewhere just to try to find some value because I think there are long shots that can win this race. We'll talk about that, of course, at the end like we always do. But point is, Leinster, of the 3 favorites, Scott, Stormy, Leinster, Infamous, he's 100% your best bet if you're looking to go with one of your lower prices in the turf sprint. The 8 is Alexandra. I mentioned Glass Slippers is one of only 2 Grade 1 or Group 1 winners in this field. Alexandra's the other. She was super impressive when she won the Jaipur in her last start at Belmont from last to first. That was a very impressive effort. She's another one that likes Keeneland. She's had one start here. It was a win in the Franklin County in 2019 last fall. And then at going 5.5 furlongs, 2 wins, 2 seconds in 4 starts. So she's done some very nice things. Only 2 races this year. That's the big concern. How is she going to handle this layoff that she's facing? Hasn't ran since the Jaipur in June. Obviously, we've seen it happen 2 of the last 3 years, Belvoir Bay and Stormy Liberal. Problem is, both of them had the races setting up really well for them. It doesn't for Alexandra. She does not possess early speed. She loves to close, and she does a really good job of it, but it's even better when there's pace in front of her to run at. That's not the case in this year's turf sprint, which is why I can't go with her. The race does not set up well for her. But she's very talented, certainly one of the best horses on pure talent alone in the field, but the race does not set up for her in a great way, which is why, unfortunately, I am looking against her. But at the same time, she loves the course, loves the distance. Jaipur is somehow a key race for the Breeders' Cup turf sprint, despite being 6 months away from it every year. It just seems to work, that transition. So perhaps she does have she definitely does have a couple angles, I should say, that would make her viable to pick in this spot. The 9 is Intimistic. Intimistic has become a brand new racehorse since joining the Brendan Walsh barn. This is a 4-year-old filly who has been all over the place. This is going to be Brendan Walsh is her 4th different trainer. This is going to be only her 4th turf start. She didn't get on the grass until May of this year. Started her career with Todd Pletcher, then went down to New Mexico, went to Jeff Mullins' barn, back to New Mexico, back to Jeff Mullins' barn, now with Brendan Walsh, and she's done some really great things since joining his barn. Won the Kentucky Downs preview race for the ladies sprint at Ellis in August. And then in that ladies sprint itself was 3rd behind Got Stormy, going 6.5. She obviously loves the 5.5 because she ran a great race when second, beaten just to nose by Got Stormy in the Franklin County. Like I said, that was a great run by her. She had a beautiful stalking trip, looked like she was a winner, somehow got caught by Got Stormy. She ran a great race. Now, the question is, how does she stack up against the males? I don't really know, because personally, I'm going to preface it now, I don't love Got Stormy in this race, but I think it's more about Got Stormy. Intimistic has been a very efficient turf sprinter, but she hasn't beaten much in her races, which is a problem, at least not this level. And in the ladies' turf sprint, she got beaten by the likes of Got Stormy and Winning Envelope, who's nowhere near this level. So there are certainly good reasons to go with her because we know she likes to course now, and we know that the distance is her optimum distance. Problem is, she got beat by Alexandra out in California in May. She's been beaten twice by Got Stormy now, and she's really had no excuses to give me a reason. She can reverse the table on either of those, and if I'm not picking either of those anyways, can't really give Intimistic a big shout. From me, however, like I said, horse for course, she's going to sit a good stalking trip this time around. So there like most of the horses in this race, there is good reason to pick them. I'm just against them. The 10 is Bombard, very lightly raced 7-year-old for Richard Mandela. 3 starts this year, no wins, but 2 very solid efforts turf sprinting. Most recently was second at 19-1 in the Kentucky Downs turf sprint. A very interesting entrant. This is a horse who's been plagued by injuries throughout his career and has really hampered him from getting to this level. Well, he's been healthy enough in 2020, and he's finally here. he's done his best work turf sprinting when he's so old that he was able to run down the hill at Santa Anita back when it was open, and he was dominant doing that. He does have one run at 5.5 furlongs. It was a second place finish. This year, he's turf sprinted twice. His only bad performance was in the Belvoir Mile. The mile has not been something that's always been kind to him. Turf sprinting, he's been very consistent doing. So I have confidence in him to run a pretty good race. And the biggest thing is he is going to be forwardly placed. And I think that that's going to be something I'm going to emphasize when I get to my picks in this race. But it's going to do him wonders being forwardly placed in a rather paceless race. He very nearly stole the Kentucky Downs Turf Sprint last time out. He almost did the same off a year layoff and an allowance race at Del Mar earlier this year against a graded stakes winner in Sparkyville. So really good form lines. You draw a line through that mile effort and at Del Mar. He fits in with this race a lot. I do think he has a good chance to run a big one here in the Turf Sprint. The 11 is Wild Man Jack. Wild Man Jack, his big claim to fame was setting a course record at Maidan earlier this year. Only one win in 4 starts since coming back to the U.S. It was in the Daytona in May, then one flat effort in the Shakertown here at Keeneland, which is a bit concerning. Ran well on the dirt in the Bing Crosby. Last time out was beat on the spot by Big Reneur. He had no real excuse, closing from well behind and finishing second, beating a length. He's a good horse. He's a good turf sprinter, but he has not always been the best, as in he's been beaten by better earlier on in his career, and then coming back to the U.S., he struggled on return, and then the form has just kind of trended down ever so slightly. Maybe up a little bit with that good Eddie D run, but at the end of the day, he was well overmatched by Big Reneur on that occasion. Come back to his race at Keeneland in the Shakertown, where he was a very uncharacteristic last. It was a very weird race for him. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I just think he is overmatched in this race by a couple of horses that have already proven to be better than him so far in 2020. The 12 has got Stormy, morning line favorite, could potentially be your favorite when they go off. Has shown a very, very good promise with her 2 wins since coming to turf sprinting in the Kentucky Downs Ladies Turf Sprint and the Franklin County at Keeneland last time out. My problem with Got Stormy is she needed every inch of the 5.5 furlongs to win the Franklin County last time out and got up to win it by a nose. But in my opinion, I think she wants more than this. I don't think 5.5 furlongs I think it's too short for her. I don't think she's going to be very effective here. She's not going to have a pace to close into. She kind of had one in her last start, not a great one. Didn't necessarily favor her, but it was enough for her to get the job done. I think it's going to be even slower this time around. So it's not going to be good for her. And plus, those wins were over, inferior competition at the end of the day. This is, of course, a mare with tons of back class, having been a very top-level miler last year, second in the Breeders' Cup Mile in 2019 at Santa Anita. But at the end of the day, I just find her to be not as effective turf sprinting. I think she's done some good things doing it, but there are just better horses, in my opinion, in this race. Up next is Texas Wedge. Texas Wedge, Peter Miller. He's won this race 3 years in a row. He hopes to make it a 4th with his representative, Texas Wedge. Texas Wedge got off to a really good start this year. Took back-to-back stakes, the Grade 2 Joe Hernandez at Santa Anita, and then the listed World of Trouble Turf Sprint at Gulfstream in January. Really good start, but he hasn't done anything great since then. Off the board finishes in 3 of his last 4 starts. Most recently was well beaten 4th in the Jim McKay Turf Sprint at Pimlico. And for that reason, like I said, he started off the year so solid, but he's just instantly hit a wall, it seems. He has not performed. Been well beaten by Wild Man Jack, Alexandra, and Leinster on 3 occasions. Had no real strong excuses. He's going to be coming from a bit off the pace, and I'll say it again, like I'll say it a million more times, there is no pace in this race to close into. So at the end of the day, Texas Wedge, unless Peter Miller can pull out that magic one more time, he's won with long shots 2 of the last 3 years, and even Stormy Liberal wasn't favored when he repeated in 2018. So magic has happened before with Peter Miller horses, but I don't see it happening here with Texas Wedge. And the last horse, finally, Extravagant Kid, number 14. He's always there at the end. He's been second behind Diamond Dupes in the Twin Spires Turf Sprint, and last time out in the Woodford behind Leinster. He's ran some excellent races throughout his career, just is a bit unlucky most of the time. Very veteran, 45 career starts, the most raced horse in the race, and he's been consistent throughout it, but has never been able to get that elite marquee win that he's been searching for. He is one that always does come running late, no matter what pace is put in front of him, slow or fast, but he doesn't always get the job done. Now, It is worth noting, in May of this year, he did beat Leinster in an allowance at Churchill Downs, but now Leinster has turned the tables on him twice in the Shakertown, in the Woodford at Keeneland. Ultimately, as good as Extravagant Kid is and as consistent as he has been beaten by Leinster twice. If you like Leinster, it really makes no sense for you to like Extravagant Kid more. He's just never been able to get the job done over him, I think, under fair circumstances, because heading into that Churchill Downs race in May, Leinster was coming off of a layoff, so he obviously had his excuses. Extravagant Kid, on the other hand, technically he was coming off a shorter layoff, but it was a layoff, but he had the advantage that day. In a fair race, he's been beaten by Leinster twice, so if you like Leinster at all, if you like Extravagant Kid at all, there's no reason you shouldn't like Leinster better, is my point. And for that reason, I do have to look against the veteran. Then you got a couple also eligibles. The 15 Equilateral from Europe. He has not won since January of this year. Has been well beaten in group stakes company over there. Chaos Theory. He actually won a grade 3 2-back. Did not make the body off of a 4th place finish in the Woodford. 17 Arcadust. He won multiple stakes at Monmouth this summer before a 3rd in the Belmont Turf Sprint. And lastly, Bulletproof won in minor stakes at Santa Anita last out. For my picks, I said the pace was going to be slow, and I'm going to go with the 2 horses that I think are going to go 1-2 all the way around, and it's going to be a merry-go-round race. Big Verneur. The rail is a little scary for me, but I have faith he'll get away quick enough, and he'll be able to take them wire to wire. And I think Lombard is going to be second, and he's going to follow him the entire way. So I think that those 2 are your top 2 in here. And then Leinster, horse for course. I think he's going to stalk well. He's just not going to be able to run down the breakaway winners in here. He'll run a good 3rd. That's all I have for you guys on this preview. Obviously, a lot of information to get through. 14 horses. It's a big race, but hopefully I was able to help you find that value. I went with 2 double-digit prices on the odds board morning line, so definitely value to be found here in the Turf Sprint. We'll see you next time for some more action here on the Racing Rundown.
To find more running room, but still 4 lengths off the lead. Coming into the final furlong, here's Leinster taking another run at Just Might. Leinster, Just Might, Extravagant Kid still 3 lengths away in 3rd. Chaos Theory is 4th toward the rail, still far back. Leinster has the lead in deep stretch. Late charge, Extravagant Kid. Leinster, Extravagant Kid second. Leinster down to the line to win it.